Welcome back to Chow Time Pods. Your host, Red. I got a video today from ChishaZed.
New data shows a surge in women choosing to leave their jobs. The Bureau of Labor Statistics estimates 450,000 women.
That's a lot of lazy people.
Quit between January and August of this year. That is the biggest exodus since the pandemic.
So we're talking about women leaving the workforce. Going to get very interesting here. Keep watching.
Experts say increasingly expensive childcare is helping to drive the trend, and if women continue to leave at this rate, the country's economic growth could slow down dramatically.
Before we check out the next comments, let's read a few here. It says, y'all want us to have kids and work. Nah, pick one. Another person here added, I'm done working. I want a soft life. There's another group of women I am going to hone in on here. And believe it or not, it's not the women who are leaving the workforce because they can't afford daycare, which daycare is expensive, but it's the women who decided after experiencing life at home during the pandemic, I've decided, you know what? I have a husband or I have means to kind of cut back. A lot of them are married and decided that they wanted to spend more time at home with their children, with their family. Check out the rest of these comments. This female commentator says, let's keep it up, ladies. Somebody else who says, yep, I just quit. I hate working. I don't care. And the question here is why? Why do you see more women complaining about working than you see men?
Because they lied. They've been lied to. We've always said it, that women aren't really built to be working for the rest of their lives. Their capacity isn't really towards that. Right? They're towards building families, building kids, raising kids, being, community people. But they're the ones that fought for, the right to be able to compete with men. And I'm alone, independent. I don't need no man. I'm better off on my own. But really, are they? Because it shows they don't like it.
Could it be that pressure was made for shoulders and not hips? Shout out to KS. I'm also reminded of something Jordan Peterson once said about men and work. Check it out.
A handful of hyper-competitive men who are obsessed with hitting the pinnacle of the given dominance hierarchy they're in will happily work 80 hours a week, and they'll forego everything else. Relationships, family, children, way in the second category. And
I'm pretty much in that category now.
so those men are often very difficult to live with, too, because they're so obsessed with their career. It's hard to have a relationship with them. And maybe they don't have much of a relationship with their kids, but they're damn good at what they do. And part of that is they're smart and disciplined, and they'll work nonstop all the time. It's like an obsession. And that's the sort of people who run things. A handful.
So he was talking about a handful of competitive men. Why does that matter? Well, I think this points to why women, when it comes to thinking about their career, thinking about what they're willing to sacrifice, realize that they're dealing with men who have an almost scary level of competition. And a lot of them do end up realizing that in order to reach the heights that they may have set for themselves, then they might have to give up on other dreams, like potentially having children, so on and so forth. But just the social aspect that's compromised is enough to drive someone who's not ready for that insane.
Staggering numbers have been released surrounding black women in the labor force. A new report shows more than 300,000 black women have left the workforce in just the last several months. That's according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Joining me now is gender economist Katika Roy to break this all down and why they're leaving.
Which is weird because, food stamps and a lot of public aid is getting cut.
Katika, thank you so much for being with us. You recently wrote an article where you say that this isn't happening by accident. Why do you think it is happening?
This is happening because of cuts to public sector positions. So if you look at the federal labor force, Black women make up just over 12% of the federal labor force. It's about double their representation in the labor force overall. And when you have targeted cuts up to 50% in organizations such as the Department of Education and HHS, you're not just trimming the fat, you're actually cutting the economic backbone for Black women.
Wow. And so what are some of the spillover effects from all of this?
Well, one of the things that we know is that there is a connection between women's labor force participation and GDP. So just Black women's labor force participation has dropped by just over 2% in the last 3 months. And that has sucked over $37 billion out of US GDP. So this is the economic cost
I highly doubt that, but okay.
of gender policy ignorance.
Hey, maybe men will now be getting paid more as women continue to exit the workforce, and now you can get your provider men. Just a thought, I know, a triggering one. That's not what we're here to talk about. What I'd like to move on to here is this video titled Why Successful Women Are Quitting Their Jobs.
Oh,
But this
this
is
came on
a
my
different
feed.
perspective, more focused on women who are successful, most of them married, and are choosing to stay at home more once getting a taste of the workforce. They're saying, you know what? I'm not a strong, independent, ladder career climbing woman. I think I like being at home. Let's check it out.
It's funny that women still put it on men even though they chose to stay at home because they wanted to spend time with more with their kids. When we didn't tell them to give up their careers, no, they gave up their careers because they wanted to give up their careers, but still somehow put the blame on men that we're controlling, and we control all of the funds now because you chose to quit and to live an easier life, or a life that more fulfilling with your kids.
A new mom at the start of the pandemic. I was writing as a business reporter about the high numbers of women who were being forced out of the workforce, millions of them. And I thought to myself, well, this is interesting. And so as a purely data-driven question, I wondered how many women in those millions of women being quote unquote forced out were actually making a conscious choice because they suddenly were in a position where they were being exposed to what life might be like being home with their kid. This was a story about a very specific subgenre of women deciding to step away. There has been an uptick since the pandemic in women identifying as stay-at-home moms, in the number of women identifying as working part-time from home. Female leaders, mothers and non-mothers, were leaving their companies at sort of record rates. So all of the sort of post-pandemic data was bearing out this idea that all of the flexibility, the remote work, people moving away, having more time with your kids, all of it kind of came together in this stew to have, you know, I would say all of us, and especially women, sort of recalibrate our priorities.
Oh, women got to actually experience the way that their mothers and grandmothers used to live. Oh, shocker.
Thank you so much for joining us. I have to confess, as the mother of 4 children who has juggled careers for the last however many years, this is a subject that is dear to my own heart. You have spoken to women who were doing well professionally, who were kind of thriving professionally, but still made the decision to step away. What did you hear from them about why they were making that decision and why now?
These were women who were making an affirmative choice for themselves, right? There are so many other stories that could be told of women who have no choice, right? They either cannot afford childcare because it is wildly expensive, or they are among the many, many layoffs that we're seeing disproportionately impact women. This was not that story. This was a story about women who had reached a certain level of success in their careers and looked around and said, I actually can do this, and I want to do this. I want to step away to spend time with my child. I want to step away to start my own consultancy and be my own boss. These were women who were making very conscious choices for themselves, and I think bucking the narrative that when women leave the workforce, it is always something that happens to them.
So when I started researching the whole issue,
I think that's really important too, because the media would love to paint it like, look what they're doing to women. They don't want to be at home taking care of their kids or with their husbands. No, they want to be out in the workforce. And while I think a good percentage definitely do want that, there are a lot of women who are just deciding to stay home as well.
I mean, Jordan Peterson has always talked about the story of how he has high-powered lawyers and how these high-powered firms are trying to keep these lawyers from not quitting once they hit the age of wanting to have kids.
Women in business back in 2008. I remember coming across a study showing that there were more professional women leaving the workforce than there were joining it for the first time in American history. And I was wondering, when I read your piece, part of me kind of thought, oh God, here we go again. This is just a kind of cyclical thing where every sort of 10, 15 years, women decide, okay, we've had enough. We stick it out. We try and make it work. We can't make it work. We're one Sunday evening's tears away from quitting. And so we're taking preemptive action and leaving on our own terms. Does it suggest that we just, however long it takes, we just can't get this right? We can't get the I hate the word work-life balance, but we can't figure out how to allow professional women to work and have children at the same time in a way that is satisfying and harmonious for everybody.
Yeah, I think there's absolutely something to that. Though I will go back to the point that, for a lot of these women, it wasn't necessarily that they didn't feel like they could make it work, right? I spoke with a woman who said, if there is such a thing as having it all, I had it. I spoke with another woman who
I like that she said that, because my immediate thought was, you're asking, can you set things up so that women have it all? That's what that question sounded like to me. And she responded back very sharply and strategically with, if there's such a thing as having it all, I had it. I had the great career and the good home, and I chose to go home.
She had the means to have nannies, and people would say, well, just get another nanny. And it will always stick with me. She said, I don't want another nanny. I want my moments, right? There is no work-life balance that is going to give you all of your time with your kids.
Correct.
That's what you want. And some of these women, to be honest with you, in my story, are not mothers. They were leaving the workforce for other things. They were leaving for other priorities.
Did any of them feel complicated
I want that soft life
about it, particularly given this moment that we're in where, we're hearing more about the trad wife aesthetic. There's a push against DEI initiatives. Did any of them feel that actually this, for them personally, this was the right time to step back or step away from a career or dial down, but that for women writ large, being on the kind of front lines of the work struggle, that makes it sound like something nobody wants to do, so I totally sympathize with them, but that being on the front lines was actually the place they were needed?
Yes, I would say this was a complicated decision for all of these women to make, and they all wrestled with exactly that. And I think particularly women of color, and so that I would say is something that weighed on all of them. And what they had to sort of wrestle with was how much of my life and my happiness do I sacrifice for sort of this larger cause to which I have contributed for many years, versus how much do I, based on all of that work I've done, get to sort of enjoy the fruits of my labor.
But notice how there are no huge, significant masses of men exiting the workforce.
I'm going to disagree a little bit, Shusha. I think a lot of the younger men just don't really want to work as hard, or just really work in general, because there's like that communist, liberal mindset, social mindset has kind of just gotten a lot of young people.
Could it be that men and women are different?
Did any of them say that the men in their lives, if they had men in their lives, felt a similar urge that they too would have liked to have stepped back? Or do you think this is a kind of uniquely female and often maternal thing that's going on? I mean, I'm wondering if at the root of some of this, not to get too meta about it,
is actually a good question.
If we as a society valued that action of caregiving, whether it's children or elder parents or communities or whatever it is, more, would men feel that they wanted to take part in it more, and we'd get round some of this problem of women still doing the lion's share of housework and child raising?
Sure. So I would say that's a great question. Among the women I spoke with, most were married, not all were. I think that's actually a misconception. Since the story came out, a lot of people have said, oh, they could only do this because their husbands make all the money. And for one of the women, she's not married. And for another woman I spoke with, she told me straight up, like, I am the primary breadwinner. So this was a conversation between us, but it was not something that I was able to do because my husband was providing for me.
But don't forget that she did say most were married, and it would make it easier knowing that there's a second income in the household. It doesn't have to be a man that's paying all the bills. You're just going to have to realize that you may have to sacrifice a bit of lifestyle. And this also points to the power of being a wife, being able to cooperate with the man, the importance of marriage, and how you can make these type of pivots. There are women right now who can never retire, never stop working, because they can't cut back on hours or stop working completely.
To your question of do men want to do this as well? I didn't get the sense from any of the women who are married or partnered that this was something that their husbands were desiring. But the data does suggest that men are feeling this urge as well. So I believe it was the McKinsey Lean In report, which showed that women were, in increasing numbers since the pandemic, reducing their hours, taking less demanding jobs. They were doing that at much higher rates than men, but the percentage of men expressing that desire and making those choices was growing as well.
I thought so.
Clearly, and obviously, as you said earlier, there are lots of women for whom
How much, though?
this is not a choice at all, and they have, they've got to work one, if not two jobs, just to make an income, that they don't have that option. That's the other sort of societal component of this, though. Obviously, the more women do choose to step back or step away from the dreaded career ladder, the more the men in their lives are going to make more money, and therefore the more the incentive will be for the woman to step back because the man is making more money, and so he is the one that should carry on working because they need his income. I mean, was that part of the kind of concern that this is a self-perpetuating thing, and that once they have stepped back, did any of them worry about if they wanted to step back in again and whether that would be possible?
I love this question because, yes, I think all of these women worried about what happens to my career long term. I might want to do this for a few years. Do I want to do it forever? And that's where the storytelling element really comes in. That's why a lot of these women, you're seeing all of these confessionals on LinkedIn. That's how I found a lot of my subjects, people saying, they kind of putting their stamp on this, not saying like, oh, I'm just not working. Oh, I'm a stay-at-home mom. But like, this is a move I'm making. And I talk.
This is the power pause.
The power pause, exactly what I'm getting to. And I can't take credit for that term. That is, that was coined by a woman named Neha Roosh, who
You say power pause?
I'm making. And I talk.
Why does everything have to be power with women? Power couple, power pose, power pause.
This is the power pause.
The power pause, exactly what I'm getting to. And I can't take credit for that term. That is, that was coined by a woman named Neha Roosh, who wrote a book of the same name. That book is specifically about motherhood and women taking a pause. But I think what Neha's getting at, and she puts it so eloquently, I hope I'll do the same, but is the idea that if all of us were to sort of societally accept that this can be a period of growth for women, that this is not them giving up, that this is not them being pushed out, that this is not them being a victim, that this is a move that they're making like any other career or personal move, then we can accept them back into the workforce in a way that like honors that. Is it?
That's about it, guys. And on that last point, I don't really see, because I'm thinking who would shame those women? Well, I think if anybody would get shamed, it would probably be the feminist getting shamed for claiming that men and women are not different. And also it would be the feminists shaming these women for saying you're giving up, you're proving men right, you're sending us back. But overall, you do what's best for your life. I think this will continue and become more common. What do you guys think?
It's funny that women still think that they can get everything that they want. They can be the great mother, spend every moment with my child, have a powerful career, be a wonderful wife. You just can't. Men know this for a fact that we can't. I always say it. You can either be you can only be 2 out of the 3. A good father, a good husband, and a good worker. Or, a person that makes a lot of money. Right? You can be a person that makes a lot of money and be a good husband. You might not be the greatest father. Right? You could be a person that makes a lot of money and be a great father. You might not be the best husband. You may be the best husband and the best father, but you may not make that great money. Right? It's so hard for people to focus in so many lanes and be the best of the best in all 3 or on everything they do. They usually have to focus, just like they said earlier, where men, they choose this hyper focus to be hyper successful, and they let everything kind of fall to the wayside because they're so focused on that one thing that they're trying to be the best at. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. I really appreciate that. And I'll catch you guys next time. Ciao.